Thomas fandom is full of so many creative and talented people who make some of the best content you'll find. Aside from character analysis and custom model showcases, you can find recreations of classic episodes, adaptations of Railway series stories, and even completely original works, all told through various forms of media. It truly is a good time to be a part of this fandom, because back in the early days of YouTube, Thomas content was far and few between. During this time, you'd find Thomas music videos set to various copyrighted songs and poor quality uploads of episodes. There were some episode recreations and original stories, but their production quality was nowhere near today's standards. The most notable fan content you'd find were things like Thomas Blows His Stack and Thomas in the Killer Car. But no video was probably as impactful to the Thomas community as Thomas and the Mad Bomber. If you're unfamiliar with this video, here's a recap, although I do recommend you watch the video yourself. In this twisted take on Thomas and Friends, a bomber takes out the line to the coal mine along with Thomas, putting everyone on edge. Cameras are handed out as a security measure and the engines decide to hold a film contest. Meanwhile, the spiteful Diesel Andy is determined to show how obsolete the engines are. After a couple of weeks, the engines show off their videos, and Thomas's video reveals a bomb on the turntable. Thomas takes the bomb and disposes it at Andy's shed, sending the two of them up in flames. Luckily, Thomas was able to be saved, and the identity of the bomber was revealed to be none other than the Fat Controller. Except not really, but we'll get to that later. This video is truly one of a kind. Being one of the first Thomas fan videos, it holds a special place in the hearts of many Thomas fans, and it's not hard to see why. The story it told was compelling, the look was very professional, and its use of pyrotechnics set it apart from everything else. The story behind the video's creation is very fascinating, but even more fascinating is the legacy that came from this video. So sit back as I go over the history of Thomas and the Mad Bomber. Before I explain the history of this video, I need to introduce the creator.
Hello, my name is Leo, and I'm the maker of Rolling Stock.
Leo Henry, otherwise known as Leokimvideo, is an Australian filmmaker and pyrotechnician who, in the year 2000, made Mad Bomber in his garage. Growing up in the late 60s, Leo developed an interest in filmmaking and special effects from watching Jerry Anderson shows such as UFO, Space 1999, and most notably, Thunderbirds. If you're familiar with Anderson's work, you'll know that it tends to be quite explosive. The use of practical and special effects fascinated young Leo and would influence his decision to become a pyrotechnician in his adult life. Starting out erecting fireworks displays, Leo would eventually jump ship to the film industry in 1995, using what he learned to provide special effects. Leo's first film credit was for the TV movie Sahara, and after that, he would do work for the Mighty Morphin Power Rangers movie, The Matrix, and Mission Impossible 2, just to name a few. At some point, Leo joined the Northside Camcorder Club, a group of film enthusiasts located in Sydney, Australia, who would meet once a month to discuss aspects of filmmaking. While part of the club, Leo made a variety of short films, one of the first being a video called Black Book. This was the tale of a man who marks the names of people who've inconvenienced him in his black book, where he would then send packages to them containing explosives. Leo credits this as being the mother of all his videos, and it makes sense seeing how aspects of this film, like the use of models, miniature sets, and pyrotechnics, can all be found in his later videos. For the club's end of the year competition in the year 2000, Leo had an idea for a Thunderbirds inspired video that was meant to be a homage to old school special effects. He had an idea, but no subject to tell it with. Fortunately, a trip to his local train shop revealed several Earl Thomas toys for cheap, and he decided that the small toy trains would be perfect for his story, and gladly bought them. Being largely unfamiliar with the franchise, Leo watched several classic episodes of Thomas to get an idea of how to tell the story with these characters. And yes, you heard that right, despite how much Thomas has dominated his channel, prior to the year 2000, Leo knew very little about the show. It's sort of funny he would use Thomas as the vehicle for his Thunderbirds homage when you realize the special effects technician for Thunderbirds, David Mitton, would go on to be the director for Thomas. Before production on the video started, several screen tests were done to visualize the concept. It was apparent early on that some of the Ertl models didn't fit well to the tracks, causing problems when moving them. To remedy this, spacers were placed in between the wheels to better fit to the tracks. Thomas's chassis had to be completely replaced as it was too narrow even with spacers. Aluminum sleds were also attached to the models and connected to piano wire, allowing Leo to move the models off camera. Around this time, a script for the video was written and all the voice lines were recorded. Leo had many of his friends from the Camcorder Club record lines for the characters, and as thanks, he had the characters adopt the names of their actors. Percy became Noel, James became Ted, the Class 40 Diesel became Andy, and so on and so forth. The only characters to keep their original names would be Thomas and the Fat Controller. With a lot of the groundwork complete, Leo could now move on to actually producing the video. Around 5 sets were constructed for the filming of the video. The sets were small and made very cheaply, but packed a lot of detail into them. HO scale tracks, buildings, and lights were used, but looking closely, you'll see things like popsicle sticks and shoestrings being used to decorate the set. It's impressive how cost-effective Leo was while keeping the level of detail high. The crane from the coal mine set came from a $2 toy pack. The sky backdrop is painted poster board, and the ballast seen in the yard is just kitty litter. So much detail and produced very cheaply. You'd never guess that the total budget for the video was around $400. In addition to the HO scale lights on the set, 3 500-watt lights were placed above it, acting as the main source of light, with several mag lights being used as highlights during the nighttime scenes. All this detail was in an effort to make these tiny sets feel real and lived in. Not only did he want the sets to feel real, but also the trains, and Leo knew the only way to do that was to give them steam. The steam effect seen in the video was achieved by blowing baby oil through a spray gun and funneling it through tubes underneath the set. The video was filmed using a Sony Digital 8 camera and was often flipped upside down to get a better point of view of the trains. For any panning shots, the camera was attached to an overhead rail and moved across the set. And of course, there are the explosions. Leo's background in pyrotechnics came in handy when providing us with fully authentic explosions. Shots like these required multiple takes and several stunt Thomases, as the explosions would leave the models quite damaged. Once all the footage was captured, everything was put together using Adobe Premiere version 4.2, with Adobe After Effects version 4 being used for special effects. And after 8 months of work, Rolling Stock Episode 1, Mad Bomber, was complete and screened for about 100 people at the Camcorder Club in Sydney. Despite titling it Episode 1, Leo never planned to continue the story. So after the screening, the sets and models were packed away and the video left on his shelf awaiting the day it would be played again. After the debut of Rolling Stock, Leo continued life as normal, still attending the club meetings and supplying special effects for several films. In 2005, a certain video sharing website would hit the scene, and while going under the radar of most people, some would start to use it as a repository and upload old videos for preservation. As the site became more popular, many of these videos would become viral sensations, drawing many new people to the platform. Leo had become aware of the popularity of YouTube and was curious about how the platform worked, so Leo decided to make a channel and find out. And so, on February 2nd, 2007, the Leokimvideo channel went live and uploaded its first video, Jet Engine Backyard, the following day. It was then on the 4th that Rolling Stock was uploaded for the world to see. For as much as I've been talking up the video, it wasn't an instant success. Over its first couple of months, it went largely unnoticed. Being a brand new channel with only a few videos uploaded at a time where the algorithm was very different, it's not hard to see why the video failed to take off. Rolling Stock had yet to find an audience. Throughout the year of 2007, Leo would upload a variety of different videos to see what would grab people's attention. He would also promote his videos on several video making forums. Meanwhile, Rolling Stock was slowly gaining views. It seems that a certain group of people were gradually finding the video. Who were these people, you might ask? None other than Thomas fans. By March of 2008, the video had accumulated over 200,000 views, the most of any of his videos at the time. And it didn't stop there. By June, it was over 400,000, by September, over 600,000, and by December, it was over 1 million. Leo was blown away by the response to the video. Never before did he imagine a video he made for fun in his garage would be adored by over 1 million people. And as the views continued to pour in, so did the comments, and one thing was very clear. People wanted more. As previously stated, Rolling Stock was a standalone video created with no intention of sequels, but with the continued growth of the video, Leo couldn't ignore the demand for more Mad Bomber. So, on October 10th, 2008, Leo announced the production of 2 new episodes of Rolling Stock. The news was revealed in a production blog for episode 2, which revealed several details about the episode's production. Episode 2 was tentatively titled Return of the Mad Bomber, with episode 3 currently being untitled. The vlog showed us a handful of characters that would appear throughout the sequels. Among them was Andy with a new black livery, and accompanying him was several other diesels. This time around, all models will be modified with HO scale bogies. This would allow the model to comfortably fit on the track and save a lot of the headache from the first production. And with this innovation, Leo now had the option to move the train using a powered locomotive. We also got a look at a scene that would appear in the video. It was a dream sequence and involved Thomas, Andy, and Thunderbird 2. The vlog ends with a tease of a mysterious new character known as the Grand Designer, who is somehow involved with the bomber's plan. Another production vlog would release the next month, revealing the official title of episode 2, Bomber, Diesel, and Steam. Other than the title, not too much was revealed here. We see his efforts in converting the tender engines to HO bogies, as well as him casting duplicate props and models. But that's about it. Episode 2 was very much still in pre-production at this point. While working on episode 2, Leo started to become dissatisfied with the quality of episode 1. Filmed 8 years prior on an older camera and then uploaded at a resolution of 240p, the video definitely looked a little dated. So Leo began looking into ways to remaster the video to look more presentable. This all came to a head on March 25th, 2009, with the release of Mad Bomber Episode 1 Reloaded. This was a visually enhanced version of Rolling Stock that was cropped into widescreen and upscaled to 480p. By today's standards, the change in quality isn't that great when we now have 1080p and 4K, but at the time, this was a major improvement from the 240p video we had before. But Leo didn't only improve the quality, he took this as an opportunity to set up events for the sequel by adding 2 brand new scenes to the episode. The first new scene introduces us to a new character, Mute, a small black diesel who doesn't speak. Not much is known about him except that he helped with Thomas's repairs. In the scene, we see Andy approach Mute about helping him with his secret plan. He then tells him to stick with him as he has connections in high places. The second scene comes at the end of the episode and shows that Andy, much like Thomas, survived the shed explosion and was undergoing repairs and apparently being cloned. It's clear that Leo wanted this to be the definitive version of the episode. After its release, he would start redirecting viewers to the new version and refer to the original as the crappy version. He eventually would delete the original, with it boasting over 5 million views. It was also around this time that the series title, Rolling Stock, was dropped. Many fans rarely if ever called it by this and usually referred to it as Thomas and the Mad Bomber. Fans couldn't wait to see what was in store for episodes 2 and 3, and they wouldn't have to wait long, as the very next month, Leo dropped 4 new trailers giving us a sneak peek of episode 2. The first trailer, titled A Dream to Remember, shows us the dream sequence mentioned in the first vlog. It starts out with Thomas being repaired after the bombing before fading to his dream. Whilst resting in Thunderbird 2, Thomas receives a visit from a freshly repaired Andy. Andy basically tells Thomas that change is coming and so are diesels. Steam engines are going to be obsolete and it's all thanks to the Grand Designer. During the conversation, he also drops a clue to the identity of the Mad Bomber, but we'll touch on that a little later. Leo stated in the comments that while the scene was planned to be in the episode, it wouldn't actually feature. The scene was too long and had very little action, so Leo decided to cut it. So rather than this being a sneak peek, it was more of a teaser. He also brings in the question the validity of the information given, seeing as we're in a dream. Trailer number 2, A Final Journey, sees Gleaming Red Ted meet his demise at the hands of the bomber. Pulling out with the mail train, we see Ted cross a bridge, only for bombs to go off, sealing his fate. Since the production of episode 1, Ted's voice actor and namesake unfortunately passed, and rather than recast him, Leo decided to write off the character. Trailer 3, titled A Clone Army, shows the production of Andy's clones in the same facility we saw Andy in at the end of Reloaded. With the context from Dreams, we know this place belongs to the Grand Designer. The last shot of the trailer shows a bomb going off in the facility, showing the Mad Bombers targeting diesels as well as steam engines. The fourth and final trailer, A Secret Message, gives us a good look at Sodor post-episode 1. As predicted in the first trailer, diesels of all kinds are appearing on the island in great numbers. Most prominent of them all is Andy and his clones. We also see Mute make his first appearance since Reloaded. We see many steam engines have converted to using Scottish John's LPG system due to the coal shortage from the first episode. There are also billboards posted all around the island advertising various things. According to Leo, the billboards are how the Fat Controller was able to fund the new technological advances on the island. The trailer shows us the bomber is still a threat, causing Helen the helicopter to crash and making an attempt on the Fat Controller's life. We also see the bomber use the billboards to send a message of their own, declaring no steam and letting the Fat Controller know his time's up. The trailer ends with the Fat Controller taking a stand against the bomber and seemingly bombing the diesel that's behind him. The trailers were received incredibly well, with the 4 videos collectively gaining over 200,000 views in 4 months. Fans were understandably excited about the episodes, but we're gonna have to wait a little while for it. Leo was working on the video part-time, and the scope of the project was much larger than episode 1. So to keep interest in the Mad Bomber up while work was being done, Leo had an idea to hold a competition. A chance to give away props and other prizes to lucky fans. Leo had been wanting to do a competition since the first vlog, and now was a better time than any. So, on April 29th, 2009, the Mad Bomber video competition was announced, with there being 2 sides of the competition. The first for people who like to make videos, and the second for people who like to watch. For the first side, contestants were tasked with creating a 40-second long insert scene for Mad Bomber Reloaded. The scene would take place between Andy's conversation with the Fat Controller and his conversation with Mute, and had to tie into the story in some way. The video could be produced using any methods available, whether that be filming Oort models or animating computer-generated trains. The sky was the limit and there was no restrictions on what could be done. The videos would then need to be uploaded as a video response to the contest video. After the deadline, all entries would be reviewed and critiqued by a panel of 4 judges to determine the overall ranking of the videos. The judges, Semersky, Sparkshot, Mark Absalon, and Off Planet Films were all friends that Leo made during his time on YouTube, and had either some interest in Thomas or in filmmaking. The other side of the competition was fairly simple. Contestants had to watch through Mad Bomber Reloaded and make a list of all the continuity errors present in the episode. This list needed to mark specific times and couldn't have any repeated errors. You then need to report your number of errors found along with who you thought the Mad Bomber was in the comments of the video, where Leo would then message you and ask to see your list. Participants were given until July 31st, about 3 months, to submit their entries to either side of the competition. So those are the rules of the contest. Now what about the prizes? Initially there were only 12 prizes up for grabs, with the top 3 prizes being reserved for the winners of the video competition, 7 prizes going to the winners of the watching competition, and 2 prizes going to random participants. Leo decided to later expand the prize pool to give 12 prizes to the winners of the video competition, bringing the total number of prizes up to 21. Nearly all prizes came with a Mad Bomber DVD and some kind of Thomas merchandise, whether it be Take and Play, Tomy, or Oertle. A Mad Bomber cap was also included in most of the video competition prizes. But the top 3 prizes were something special. The third prize for the video competition came with an Oertle Thomas, an Oertle Fat Controller's car, and the bomb-damaged Andy used in episode 1. Second prize came with an Oertle Thomas, an Oertle Andy and Clarabelle, and the bomb-damaged Thomas used in episode 1. And the first prize came with an Oertle Thomas signed by the Mad Bomber, an Oertle Fat Controller's car, and a piece of the coal mine set used in episode 1, with Thomas and coal trucks included. First prize would also get 2 weeks autoplay on Leo's channel and a billboard of their own in episode 3. So fans would vehemently work on their submissions until the deadline came in July, and then the judging process would begin. The watching competition was the first to be completed. Around 35 people entered, however only 20 responded when asked for their list. In total, there were around 25 errors present in Mad Bomber Reloaded. And the winners were Off Track Productions in 3rd place, Percy and Billy Fan 828 in 2nd place, and You and a Kid Hog in 1st place. I wasn't able to find the number of goofs each winner found, but I can at least say no one found all 25. The video competition finished judging about 2 weeks later. One interesting thing about the winner video is that Leo included a short scene to demonstrate the importance of a script. While the events of this video are likely non-canonical to the story, it does give us some insight about the grand designer. We learn that he is the creator of all the engines, which does give some context to some scenes and gives you an idea of his position. Anyway, this side of the competition was definitely the one most people were interested in, seeing as there were around 88 submissions. Before I get into the winners, I just want to highlight some of the submissions. I think there are just so many great entries that deserve some love. Knapford Harbor created a wonderful submission in Trains that shows Ted discovering Andy's diesel factory. Suspense is gradually built throughout the sequence as we watch Ted find the facility and then be discovered by the diesels. The suspense reaches its peak when a diesel appears from underground as Ted tries to reverse. The best part is that no dialogue is used whatsoever. This is a story told through the visuals and music alone. The entry from Miss Oliver Blossom gives me a bit of nostalgia, as he was a fairly popular YouTuber back in 2008, and I remember watching some of his videos. In his entry, we see Noel discover that Diesel 10 is the one behind the bombings. The video is both dramatic and very typical of the type of video that he used to make. And then there's the audio entry from New Controller 01. An odd entry for sure, but a very interesting one nonetheless. It depicts the revival of Andy after the shed explosion, describing the events in very clever detail. It's a shame it's so short, as the audio feels like a small excerpt from a much larger novel. But anyway, on to the winners. Each entry was judged on a scale out of 50 points, and these three scored the highest out of everyone in the competition. In third place, with 42 out of 50 points, was Scarloey123, with another submission made in trains. This entry expounds upon Ted's demise seen in A Final Journey, showing Thomas's perspective. I gotta say, this entry feels the most cinematic of them all. The dark and gloomy lighting, cutting from Thomas to Ted, the changing camera angles, the subtle use of sound effects, it all really goes to amplify the video. It really feels like Scarloey was making the most out of the software they had. Interestingly enough, Scarloey is still making Thomas videos to this day, and his skills as a filmmaker have greatly improved. In second place, with 43 out of 50 points, was Off Track Productions, the third place winner of the watching competition. His entry shows the Fat Controller setting fire to the engine shed in an attempt to take out Thomas. While I'm not sure what reason the Fat Controller would have to kill Thomas, Off Track's video showcases some simple yet effective set design, and his willingness to light the set on fire elevates this video. And, in first place, with 44 out of 50 points, the winner of the Mad Bomber video competition, Ewan a Kid Hog, who is also the winner of the watching competition. Ewan's video depicts Ted taking the mail train before being cut off at a crossing by Mute. It makes use of Ertl models and a small HL layout like many others, but his video differs in that it's animated in stop motion. It gives the video a unique look and definitely makes it stand out. The reason I think this video ultimately won though was because of how it relates to the story of the Mad Bomber. If you remember, participants were tasked with creating an insert scene between Andy's meeting with the Fat Controller and his meeting with Mute. Many of the submissions, while really good, fail in that regard. Imagine you're watching the Mad Bomber, and after the conversation with the Fat Controller, it cuts to a scene about Ted being blown up, and then cuts back to the episode as normal. That would be very jarring and confusing, but Ewan's entry fits nicely between those scenes. And with that, the Mad Bomber competition was concluded. The winners would receive their prizes over the coming weeks, and Leo would continue his work on episode 2. Following the contest, we'd get the deleted scenes from episode 1 in widescreen, a tutorial on how to convert Thomas toys to HO bogies, and a compilation of behind the scenes videos. But after that, updates on the Mad Bomber slowed significantly. Leo would continue to upload to his channel, but rarely made mention of the Mad Bomber. His bio at one point mentioned an important video taking longer to make than expected, but that was later removed. Fans were obviously curious about the status of Mad Bomber, and would often ask about it in Leo's comment section. But these comments went unanswered. Fans could only speculate what was going on. Was the project on a hiatus? Was Leo just taking his time? It wouldn't be for another 3 years till we finally got an answer. On March 31st, 2013, Leo uploaded a behind-the-scenes video of the Dreams trailer, the first new Mad Bomber content we'd received in years. Unfortunately though, this video confirmed our worst fears. Mad Bomber episode 2 and 3 were in fact cancelled. Leo would upload 5 more behind-the-scenes videos throughout the rest of the year. In these videos, we'd get insight into what happened to the project. According to Leo, there were several people who were not happy with his use of Thomas. They claimed that he was ripping off the franchise and called the videos unoriginal. These comments persisted throughout the sequel's production and only became louder and more abundant until eventually Leo had had enough. Leo once said that fun is the key to making something which takes so much time. There's no point in making something if fun is not part of the experience. And unfortunately, making Mad Bomber was no longer fun to him. While this was a big reason he stopped making the episodes, I doubt it was the only one. Leo had gone through several unpleasant experiences while on YouTube, from people sending him rude comments and death threats to receiving false copyright claims. On the note of copyright, there's also the fear of being legitimately claimed. If he did finish and upload the video, Hit Entertainment could take down the video if they wanted. You're probably well aware of how flawed YouTube's copyright system is, but in the 2010s, it was much worse. Another Thomas-related video, Transformers, had already been taken down, and Leo didn't want his video to suffer the same fate. So Mad Bomber Episode 2 was no more, and the sad part is it was so close to completion. Apparently Leo had completed about 70% of the episodes before cancelling the project, only needing to film the ending and other various scenes. I can't really blame Leo for cancelling the project, but it is disappointing that we never got to see everything come together. The story was looking to be an exciting one, but we'll never truly know how the story would have played out. All we can really do is theorize, and that's what I plan to do. With all the trailers, behind the scenes content, and comments from Leo, we can try to piece together what the lost story of the Mad Bomber would have been. This is just speculation based on the information I have available, so forgive me if there are any large leaps in logic or any dangling plot threads. Also, this is strictly covering Episode 2, as we basically know nothing about Episode 3. Anyway, here's how I think the story goes. Taking place several months after the events of Mad Bomber 1, this episode would pick up with Thomas nearing the end of his repairs, and while this is going on, Thomas begins to dream. In this dream, Thomas encounters a rebuilt Andy, who warns Thomas that diesels are taking over thanks to the Grand Designer. Andy then leaves Thomas with a clue about the Mad Bomber before the dream ends. Now fully repaired, Thomas returns to work on the railway. He'd likely reconvene with his friends who tell him about the changes to the railway. Toby would likely be included among his friends, as Leo mentioned that he would have a bigger role in this episode. The steam engines are left with limited coal, as the line to the coal mine is still closed. As a result, diesels are brought to the island to carry the workload. Among the new diesels is Andy, who has been repaired and mass-produced. The diesels were not the idea of the Fat Controller, but rather the Grand Designer. Leo mentioned that the Fat Controller is under instruction from a higher power, and this higher power is likely the Grand Designer. In an attempt to keep the steam engines relevant, a gasworks was built and many of the engines were converted to run on gas and carry a gas canister behind them, though many of the tender engines forego this conversion out of stubbornness. The diesels aren't happy with the steamies' attempt to reinvent themselves, causing tension between the two groups to rise. To fund all these technological advancements, the Fat Controller has started putting up advertisements in the form of billboards. Once Thomas has caught up to speed, Meat would come into the yard delivering a new jet engine meant for Helen the helicopter. After some initial tests, Helen is given the engine and goes out flying. All seems well until the engine fails, causing Helen to crash into a windmill, narrowly missing Gordon. Henry and Thomas are sent with the breakdown train to clear the damage. An inspection of Helen reveals the engine had been tampered with, arousing suspicion that the Mad Bomber may have returned. Not long after this, while taking the mail train, Ted is killed in an explosion on the bridge. There is now no doubt that the Mad Bomber has indeed returned. It's deduced that the bomber is targeting the tender engines, likely to send a message to the engines converted to gas. The steam engines become more wary of the diesels, as they believe one of them is the bomber. Adding to the chaos and confusion, billboards around the island have been vandalized, having the words "no steam" written on them, a message very obviously from the bomber. The Fat Controller is aware of these events, but is determined not to be intimidated by the bomber. One day, while driving around the island, he spots another message on the wall, stating "Time's up." The Fat Controller initially disregards it and walks away, but his car is then bombed and he narrowly escapes the explosion. He surveys the damage and concludes that action must be taken against the bomber. While a fire truck puts out the flames, the Fat Controller questions Trevor, who would have likely seen whoever painted the wall. Trevor might say that he saw a diesel paint the wall, causing the Fat Controller to become wary of the diesels he was given. In response to the bombings, the Fat Controller decides to arm the steam engines with explosives, as a way to fight back against the bomber, who they believe is a diesel. Meanwhile, the Grand Designer is busy creating more of Andy's clones in their facility. All seemed fine until a bomb goes off, destroying nearly all of the clone diesels. Leo mentioned that the higher power over the Fat Controller would be destroyed in Episode 2, so the Grand Designer would likely be killed in this explosion. News of the bombing reaches everyone on Sodor and reveals that the diesels aren't behind the bombings. The engines then discuss who the culprit could be. We then cut to the final scene of the episode, which according to Leo takes place in the repair sheds, and would have revealed the identity of the Mad Bomber. Now, I by no means think this is an accurate representation of the story we could have gotten. Despite all the footage we have, I was still doing a lot of guessing, and there are just some things that we'll never know. But this wasn't about being right, it was just some fun speculating about what could have been. I'm sure you all have thoughts on how the story could have played out, and I would love to open up the discussion to you guys. So feel free to leave a comment and tell me what you think. Now, in talking about the episodes, all discussions eventually lead back to one question. Who was the Mad Bomber? Of all the questions about the project, this was the most frequently asked. Years after the sequel's cancellation, people were still discussing who they thought the bomber was. I feel confident in saying that the Mad Bomber was the Fat Controller. There's just a lot of evidence stacked against him. He was seen planting the bomb in Thomas's video, his silhouette is seen switching the points in the Andy shed, and he has motive in wanting to manipulate the stock market. You'll notice that I said he was the Mad Bomber. The Fat Controller was only the bomber in the original cut of the episode. Since Rolling Stock was meant to be a standalone episode, Leo never planned anything after episode 1. It wasn't until the video exploded on YouTube that he began to expand the story, and in expanding the story, the identity of the bomber was changed. So then again, I have to ask, who was the bomber? Let's take a look at some of the likely candidates. Everyone's prime suspect for being the bomber was Andy Diesel. Throughout episode 1, Andy was very vocal about his disdain for the steam engines, and was in general a suspicious character. In Reloaded, we even see him talk about a secret plan to Mute. What is the secret plan? Possibly bombing Sodor. Speaking of Mute, he is another worthy candidate. Mute was not in the original version of the episode, and was retroactively added in Reloaded. He is also present throughout the 4th trailer. Considering Reloaded was meant to set up events in episode 2, you can't help but think that Mute has something to do with the bombings. The paint smudge on his driver's cab is also the same color as the writing on the walls in Secrets. Leo even commented once saying that he was someone to watch. Trevor is an interesting suspect because he's not much of a character. No screen time is dedicated to him and he isn't even named in the episode. But Trevor makes an appearance at nearly all the locations of the bombings. When Thomas is bombed at the potato farm, Trevor is there. When Helen crashes into the windmill, Trevor is there too. And when the Fat Controller's car is bombed, Trevor is there watching. If Trevor isn't the bomber, it's very possible that he saw who the bomber is. In the first production vlog on episode 2, Leo gave us a clue about the bomber's identity. In the description of the video, he mentions that the bomber is an evil twin. With this in mind, Andy, Mute, and Trevor are out as prime suspects. As far as we know, neither of them have twins. Andy does technically, but his clones wouldn't have appeared until after the bombing started. So who else could it be? One thing that sort of went unaddressed is what happened to the Fat Controller. At the end of episode 1, he was seemingly arrested for being the bomber, but in the trailers for episode 2, he's seen running the railway. For the reasons I explained earlier, I'm certain that he isn't the bomber, but there's still evidence stacked against him. If he is the bomber, why is he free in episode 2? And if he isn't, why was he seen in Thomas's video? Well, in Secrets, there are several shots where 2 Fat Controllers are present on screen. Whether this doppelganger is a clone or a twin, it's possible that the second Fat Controller was responsible for the bomb placed at the shed, likely as an act to frame the original Fat Controller. The only thing against this is that Leo said that some of the footage was shot just for the trailer. But this is irrelevant, as the bomber can't be either of them. I mentioned earlier that in dreams, Andy gives Thomas a clue to the identity of the bomber. If the dream is to be believed, this is a pretty significant clue.
I suppose you want to know who the Mad Bomber is? Well, here's my tip. He looks just like you.
It's unclear whether he meant this figuratively, as in he looks like you steam engines, or literally as in he looks like you Thomas. Regardless of what is meant here, Andy clarifies that the bomber is indeed a steam engine. So an evil steam engine with a twin. Knowing this, we can confidently cross off Andy, Mute, Trevor, and the Fat Controller, as they either don't have a twin or are not steam engines. This only leaves a handful of potential suspects. These 2 are minor characters in the story and don't receive much screen time, but they are steam engines and they are twins. It's never specifically stated that they are twins, but I think it's implied as they are literally identical. The only thing against one of them being the bomber is their lack of motive. Like I said, they don't receive much screen time, so it's hard to say why one of them could be the bomber. On top of that, Alan could barely work his camera, so I doubt he could figure out a bomb. Scottish John is a steam engine but doesn't appear to have a twin. Although looking at the cast of characters, there are 2 engines that could potentially be his twin, Chris and Wilson. Chris and John are both saddle tank engines. but that's where the similarities end. They have a different number of wheels, a different cab, and a different boiler shape. But in the opening credits of the episode, Chris and John are paired together, which is a strange occurrence when you realize that Alan and Earl, characters who are literally identical, aren't. So I think there is some merit in saying Chris might be his twin. But Wilson actually shares more in common with John than Chris. You see, John and Wilson's Ertl models are repaints of each other and are perfectly identical. All this is to say that John potentially has a twin, and John, unlike Alan and Earl, also has a motive. In the wake of the bombing, John uses his video in the contest to advertise LP gas as an alternative to coal, and in episode 2 we would have seen most of the engines converted to gas. It's possible that John bombed the line to the coal mine to scare the railway into using his gas. I used to believe that the bomber could only be Andy, due to him generally being a bad guy, but looking at all the evidence, I think Scottish John is the most likely candidate. He meets the criteria well enough and he has a pretty solid motive. But this is all just speculation. Without confirmation from Leo, we'll never know the true identity of the Mad Bomber. This is just one of the many mysteries about the project that will never be solved. Or at least, that's what I would say, because we did actually get the answer to this question. In May of 2021, Leo, out of nowhere, decides to comment on a video by Tons of Trackmaster and reveal who the bomber was. And as it turns out, the Mad Bomber was Bluebell.
Who's that?
Bluebell is a steam engine preserved on the Bluebell Railway. They made a cameo in Reverend Audrey's Railway series and eventually received an Ertl model of their very own. If you're like me, you probably don't remember a character named Bluebell appearing in Mad Bomber, and that's because technically they didn't. Bluebell never made an appearance in an episode proper, but they were seen in the background of the production vlogs. Looking at the criteria, Bluebell meets every requirement to be the bomber. 1, they're a steam engine. I don't think anyone's gonna argue with me on that one. And 2, they're a twin, specifically Thomas's. Both Bluebell and Thomas's models are identical to each other, with the only difference being their paint and Bluebell's lack of a face. This clears up what Andy meant back in Dreams. The U in his statement refers to Thomas specifically and not steam engines. But knowing all this, how can Bluebell be the bomber if they never appeared in an episode? What possibly could their motive have been? Well, Bluebell's motivation lies in jealousy. It seems that at one point, Thomas was chosen over Bluebell. Their lack of a face made them undesirable, so they were repeatedly passed over in favor of engines that had faces. Bluebell wanted so desperately to have a face and be chosen, but that never happened and Bluebell grew bitter. And so, under the guise of Mute the Diesel, Bluebell began their reign of terror, bombing the island of Sodor, starting with the engine they hated the most, Thomas. When this was revealed, the Mad Bomber fandom lost their minds. The bomber was Bluebell, and Bluebell was disguised as Mute? It made so much sense, but we never considered it. Why did Leo introduce Mute in Reloaded? Because he was the bomber in disguise. Why did Andy know who the bomber was in Dreams? Because he had met them. Why did Helen's engine suddenly fail? Because Bluebell was the last one to have it. And why would the bomber attack the Grand Designer, who is seemingly phasing out steam engines in favor of diesels? Because he was the one who didn't give Bluebell a face. The fact that Mute was actually Bluebell was such a clever deception. With all the clues Leo had given, there was no way that Mute could have been the bomber unless you realized that Mute wasn't a diesel. There's actually a small detail about Mute that gave away that he wasn't a diesel. You'll notice that Mute blows steam from under his chassis, rather than smoke from a vent like we see with Andy. Imagine that someone, I like to think Toby, noticed that the paint on the billboard matched the paint on Mute's driver's cab, and this is what led to the reveal of the Mad Bomber. Bluebell being passed over for other engines was meant to be a nod to the fact that Bluebell's Ertl toy didn't sell as well as others. To quote Leo, "I've always had a curiosity related to peg sitters. When Ertl toys were on the pegs, there were always stacks of Bluebells not selling. The poor Ertl engine without a face, but looked just like Thomas. Imagine the anger building in Bluebell to be faceless amongst the other toy trains that had faces. That anger would be the motivation to be the Mad Bomber." And that's about it. I've covered pretty much everything regarding Thomas and the Mad Bomber. Since working on Mad Bomber, Leo focused his channel around toy reviews, mostly covering Thomas toys but occasionally covering other franchises. And despite having some troubles with YouTube over the years, he's still going to this day. He's amassed quite the collection of Thomas toys doing these reviews. Among them are his Ertl models. While not used as often as they used to, they occasionally do make appearances in his videos. Over 10 years since the original video was uploaded, fans are still hoping that one day Leo will decide to finish the sequels to the Mad Bomber. I honestly don't see this happening. The project consumed a lot of his time and caused him much stress, and he seems very content doing his toy reviews. I remember messaging Leo back in 2013 and asking if he'd ever come back to making Mad Bomber. I don't have access to the message anymore, but he essentially said that he had no intention of bringing back the project, but hoped that fans would see how he made videos and would make videos of their own, continuing the legacy of the Mad Bomber. And I believe that Leo's desire did come true. Since the video's cancellation, there have been countless fan projects about the Mad Bomber, spanning from remakes of episode 1 to continuations to the creation of custom models. The Mad Bomber fandom is still thriving to this day. The amount of people who reacted to the news of Bluebell being the bomber is proof enough. There's still so much love for this video. I mean, heck, I just spent the past 40 minutes talking about this obscure video made in the year 2000. This video obviously means something to me. But more than that, Mad Bomber had a huge impact on the Thomas community as a whole. Mad Bomber being one of the first Thomas fan films would go on to inspire many to create their own fan videos. Half the reason Leo did his Mad Bomber contest was to give exposure to these talented filmmakers. I think Thomas Wooden Railway on Twitter said it best. Leo started a Thomas fan project movement that is still chugging along to this day. It just goes to show that a little video can go a long way. Thanks for watching my retrospective on Thomas and the Mad Bomber. This is the longest video I've made to date, and I really appreciate you watching to the end. Mad Bomber holds a special spot in my heart, as it was one of the first videos I saw on the internet, and it played a big part in me wanting to become a filmmaker. I followed the developments of the Mad Bomber almost all the way through. I was there for the Mad Bomber competition, I was there when the sequels were cancelled, and I was there when the Mad Bomber was finally revealed. These events were truly something amazing, and I really hope this video was able to convey that. The amount of work and dedication Leo put into this project was truly incredible, and even though the project was eventually abandoned, the small glimpse that we did get was inspiring. Leo, if you're watching, I want to thank you for creating Rolling Stock in the first place. You have no idea what this video means to me and the entire Thomas fandom. And if there's any information I got incorrect, leave a comment below and I will pin it to the top of the comment section. Anyway guys, this is where I'm going to end the video for today. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I thank you for watching. Alright guys, bye.